There has always been this cycle in my life where I wanted something bigger for myself, but I was also afraid to go after it. And to be honest, I learned to use this to my own advantage in life, to constantly get everything that I want, to always achieve the goals that I'd envisioned for myself. Because there always came a moment after I realized I wanted something bigger for myself that the next best version of me who was capable of achieving that level was on the other side of going after that exact thing that I was afraid to pursue. Part of having the courage to always go after what I wanted in my life meant not waiting to feel ready, not waiting to feel 100% confident, not having everything figured out, and especially not knowing that guarantee on whether or not I'll be successful at actually pursuing the exact thing that I want. Of course, by always giving myself permission to go after exactly what I wanted, it was basically always giving myself that permission before I ever felt ready, not waiting for the perfect moment, and realizing that I do not need to have it figured out. I just need to take the first step. I realized that the only thing that I need in order to pursue all of my goals and achieve these bigger dreams that I have for myself is just knowing that I want more. That is all that I need. I do not need to have everything figured out. I know that that confidence will be built as I take action in my life. The pattern is always the same. I want more. I'm scared of having more or going after it. I allow myself to go and show up anyways. And somewhere in the process, I always grow and I always expand into that next level version of myself. And by the way, this does not mean that I'm fearless whatsoever. It doesn't mean I always have the confidence. It just means that I am willing to dream bigger in my life. And I'm always willing to honor that version of myself. I think it is so important to normalize always raising the bar, always raising our standards, and understanding we could always dream bigger than the last goals that we achieve for ourselves. There is no limit on us. Now I realize the only limitations are the ones that we really place on ourselves. We are the only thing in the way of achieving a life that we consistently dream about. I always end up becoming her throughout the process of continuously confronting everything that scares me in my life. I always believe that the people who had everything that they wanted, who were very successful, living out a very desirable life, they're not the best. They just go after it. They just consistently show up and never stop doing that for themselves. And that is how they always reap the reward of the effort that they put in because they're willing to be bold, they're willing to be confident, they are willing to normalize goals that once felt so out of touch, so out of reach for them. There are a lot of things in our life that we think are unrealistic or unachievable, or we never imagine the possibility of actually having that thing in our life until we normalize it, until we expose ourselves to it. Something I've learned by always building up the courage to go after exactly what I wanted for myself is that it has never been perfect, but it's always been worth it, and it's always expanded me as a person. And there are things that I have in my life now. There are goals that I've achieved that my younger self literally never thought would happen, but it only came throughout the process of always wanting something bigger and always giving myself permission to go after it. And every single time that I did that, I expanded myself. I grew into a brand new version of myself who can now normalize an entire new level in her life. So things started to become the norm in my life. I started to realize there are a lot of things around me that I felt like I took for granted, but I honestly just realized that it was just a level of success that I had achieved for myself. And now I'm just dreaming bigger than that. I'm wanting more than that. I am allowing myself to envision an even higher level now. I honestly think that's how a lot of people become so out of touch. It's not that they're not relatable anymore, it's just that they don't relate to who they used to be because they normalized success. They realized it was the bare minimum and they allowed themselves to pursue things in their life that they had fears towards, that they didn't know how it was going to work out. They just knew the entire time that they were meant for more and they weren't willing to settle or negotiate on that. Life is literally about expansion. If you are not expanding yourself, if you are not challenging yourself, then you are settling. And I'm especially not willing to settle or negotiate on that version of myself. I'm allowing myself to have exactly what I want out of my life, and I do not care if it looks crazy or insane. I'm always going to give myself that permission to go after the bigger or the more that I want. And I always believe that the things that we allow ourselves to go after in our life are a direct reflection of what we surround ourselves with. So if we're constantly around things that reinforce a complacent version of ourselves who is willing to settle in their life and not actually reach their potential, then that is a version of ourselves that we are going to feel is the highest level, if that makes sense. So if we constantly push our comfort zone, if we're willing to go after our fears in life, that is always going to expand us as a person. And as we expand, we reach new levels, and we especially normalize those new levels in our life. So once we achieve something that we once thought was impossible or was out of reach, it now becomes the bare minimum. It becomes the standard in our life. And I know for a fact that is how I've always allowed myself to reach my potential. Something I've learned too is that the only way to become the version of yourself who can actually hold or have the capacity for more in your life is to be willing to go after it before we're ready. This is such a healthy habit or pattern to build in your life. And it allows you to build the confidence in yourself to really build a life of your dreams. This is a pattern that I've normalized in my life that has allowed me to constantly grow, expand. I truly believe that I've mastered the art of this, constantly pushing my comfort zone, expanding as a person, and growing. And it has always served me very, very well. That's why I advocate for people to constantly push themselves and not listen to other people when they're trying to limit you in life. When we want to dream bigger, but we're also afraid of it, that is our intuition and our gut trying to guide us in life. It is trying to bring us closer to that next level, to the version of ourselves that can actually sustain success. Anytime that I've ever pursued anything that I've ever wanted, it has always benefited me very well. A lot of what we want out of our life is always going to be tied to fears because it's our body wanting us to feel safe, to stay where it's very familiar, but that is not where greatness happens. It happens on the other side of pursuing the unknown, doing things no matter how ready or confident you feel. Success is, of course, not always guaranteed, right? But we are doing ourselves a disservice if we are not even willing to fail at something. Because the truth is, we have to be willing to go after things without having it figured out, without knowing how it's going to work out, and especially not with that guarantee of success throughout the process of it. I've always been willing to go after what I wanted in my life because I knew that it would help me become a better version of myself, a healthier, grown, more mature version of myself. And I truly believe that is what we want through life. It's not about what we get in the end. It's not about the destination. It is about the person that we become throughout the process of that. It's learning to always give ourselves that permission, always pushing ourselves as a person. The life that we dream about is not out of touch. It's just not right in front of us at that moment. And it requires us to take the first step, to be willing to take action without having it figured out, without knowing how it is going to work out or end. I have the apartment that I've always wanted. I live in my dream city that I've always wanted to live in. I've given myself so many experiences that have benefited me so much, but also really challenged me. I'm now on the way to building a platform that I've always wanted and also building a brand off of it. And just the experience itself has been worth it. We owe it to ourselves to reach our potential in our life, and we have to be willing to want the bigger, better, more things in our life, but also understanding that we are going to be afraid to go after it, and there is nothing wrong with that. That is a key indicator that it is something that we truly want for ourselves, and we need to be willing to go after it. I'm on a journey of constantly leveling up my life, pushing my comfort zone, doing things that scare me, and really reaching my own potential. If that is something that you see for yourself, then I will see you in the next video.